Drone flying isn't free? I mean, there's news right there. People write that down. I'm surprised. So I guess to start this off, and maybe we'll start with Steve and we'll go backwards down the list here. Can you describe kind of your crop budgeting process, like where you begin, when you adjust, and like how do you make budgeting decisions through the year and calculate that?
Yeah, usually our budgeting process begins late summer for the, like August, we were talking about buying 32%. And we did that. And so it starts in the summertime. We get together our salesmen and talk about maybe new products we need to be looking at. But we use a program called Granular, which has been bought out by Traction Ag. Corteva used to own it. We adopted Granular a couple of years ago, and it's pretty heavy. I mean, it does a good job. My goal is to get every acre digitized, so who's on it, what we're using on it, so I have those records up in the cloud. And so we use Granular a lot, but most of the time we're just keeping an eye on the ball a little bit. We do have our one supplier, but we try to keep them honest. They fit our logistic locations of our farm, but we also go out and price, keep an eye on the online prices. And if I have to, visit the manager or my salesman and approach them about why are we so out of whack, right? So we do a little negotiating.
Cool. Ronnie, how do you check that program out?
Yeah, so I think we kind of pride ourselves on trying to take almost a multi-year approach to budgeting. We're very similar here as far as, a lot of the input purchases start late summer with fertilizer and cover crop seed. Of course, is a little earlier than that, so we can get it booked and those types of things. But a lot of what we try and do is to create kind of an ROI-based system that, through our 1 Acre Grid fertility program and through a lot of these other things, use of litter and stuff like that, really try and be looking and even right on out to how we deal with landlords and those multi-year contracts and that kind of thing. We'd like to not be entirely cornered in this year, starting in the summer. We'd like to have flexibility. When we went into this fall, we didn't apply any dry fertilizer. Not that we're not going to apply some come spring now that prices have come down, but we like to be in a position where we feel confident that we know what the effect of those kind of decisions is going to be. If we can delay those types of expenses in years where we feel like maybe it's just not the right decision as far as the return we're going to get for it. So it is a long-term, multi-year, like so many things we do now. When you pick genetics programs and all these things, you push those decisions further and further back. But yeah, but with the inputs, we are starting in August and moving right up through then, of course, December, January with the rest of your primary inputs, and then all the way out to your some of those last minute bugs in the jug or whatever it is out into March and then getting ready for the next year.
Logan, how do you guys do it? I mean, you're small, but you're trying to do big things. Tell me about that.
So similar to Steve, as the buying season seems to be moving more forward or sooner, that's when I really start focusing on it. And I just run simple spreadsheets. I guess I'm probably in the generation that's can make a spreadsheet and be pretty proud of how it spits out and the information there. And only being on 3 or 4 fields, I have a spreadsheet for each one of those fields, so I can get my break even, knowing what cash rent or if it's a field that I purchased or one of those 40 acres that we've purchased, I'm able to tune that in pretty well. So starting in that August timeframe, or when the first nitrogen bill shows up or the seed salesman starts knocking, that's when I pretty well copy and paste all my expenses from last year into this coming year, and then I can go, okay, these past 2 years, we're going to need to add 10% to the chemical bill, add 25% to the fertilizer bill, and I start creating my break evens that August before the next season. So trying to learn what I did last year, and conservatively, when it comes to break evens, I really like to be surprised once I harvest that crop, 14, 15 months later. So I'm which probably isn't the best practice, but I like putting in an APH yield as opposed to my hopeful yield. Oh. So I'm a little nervous all year on that spreadsheet at the bottom line and what that break even looks like. And then, I go from a 180 hopeful to a 225 harvested, 250 harvest. And, I just got a lot of cash there. So, but copy and pasting those last year expenses, talking to my suppliers and understanding what percentage I should play and put in there and get off to the races as early as I can.
Well, I suppose that keeps it a little bit tense for you, a little pressure. It's always kind of fun.
Constant gentle pressure.
Constant, gentle pressure. I sometimes think it's probably not gentle, but that's okay. But I've had farmers ask me how, you get into this discussion, you need to know your cost of production. Is that hard to do? I mean, Steve, you're working with Granular, and I know the Pioneer cashed them out to Traction Ag. That's really the way to say that.
It is.
Just saying that. Anyway, moving on. And for the folks at home, the question there though is that gives you a pretty good picture of your price using that technology, right?